5 minutes ago. First, I would like you to surrender to the Public Security Bureau. In an instant, his reasoning cracked. From when he was a student in the academy to when he turned into the Lord called the Demon God till now, Chun YeoWoon never even thought of the word surrender. It made no sense to him. You want me to surrender? If he wanted to, Chun YeoWoon could annihilate all the officers, including the snipers, in the blink of an eye. It was just that he didn't understand the current era, so he decided to take a step back. You call that being helpful? Please don't misunderstand. Words aren't always appropriate. I don't really mean to surrender. What do you mean? The public security represents the Chinese government. From the government's point of view, we keep a close eye on the Murim warriors who are active without a registration. Come to think of it, the man whom Chun YeoWoon was holding did say something about being an unregistered Murim. It meant that in this era, Murim was being bound. Ah! Suddenly, Chun YeoWoon remembered the words of Chun Musong, his descendant. Chun Musong said that the non-aggression pact between Murim and the empire disappears in the future. The future the descendant came from was hundreds of years later, and Chun YeoWoon wasn't that aware of the future. I'm stuck. Did Murim regress? As of now, he couldn't figure anything out. So far, he only found 2 traces of the Murim. Of course, Chun YeoWoon wasn't the kind to make hasty judgments based on that. I'm just saying, it seems like you are not registered, am I right? Since Chun YeoWoon wasn't a person of this age, there was no way his identity was registered. Chun YeoWoon expressed his affirmation. Right. In Zhou Yusong's hand was a simple hand telescope. With that, he was able to see So Pyong, performing an identity check of the Murim man. Optimal talent. If the identity couldn't be found, of course, that meant he was an unregistered Murim warrior. A person with that kind of stubbornness would have been seen or heard about, but not once did he hear about such a man. Maybe he hid himself. Even in modern times, some people hide their identities by disappearing for a long time, especially in Murim. Zhou Yusong was convinced that Chun YeoWoon was such a person. Rather than surrender, I want you to think of it as waiting while cooperating with the Public Security Bureau. To avoid friction? Right. If you continue to confront each other in a situation with too much attention, it will only worsen. Which is why I'm asking you to pretend to cooperate with public security for a while. We need time to prepare. They had to prepare him an identity. It wasn't sure how it would help, but in the current situation, the only option Chun YeoWoon had was to use force. How long do I have to wait? At Chun YeoWoon's question, Zhou Yusong answered. We will solve it within 24 hours. 24 hours? Chun YeoWoon was puzzled, for which Nano helped him. 1 hour as in 2 here. 24 hours means 12. With those words, the general information on the time unit of the present day was known. Chun YeoWoon sent a message. Too late. What? Zhou Yusong couldn't hide his shock. Since it was late evening, it would take some time to prepare the identity. Besides, he had to report to his superiors before he did anything. This is becoming tough. He needed some leeway. However, when he heard Chun YeoWoon's voice, he could feel that the man wasn't interested. He's as demanding as his skills. Even so, he had to show that his organization was capable to some degree. In a hurry, he replied. All right. We will fix this in 12 hours. I promise on my honor. In one shot, it was reduced from 24 hours to half the time. It was on the border between what he could and couldn't do. Whether the connection with Chun YeoWoon would stay or not depends on how quickly the man solved the problem. Fine. Acceptance fell from Chun YeoWoon's mouth. Zhou Yusong, who was worried that Chun YeoWoon would keep pushing him, sighed. But then, Chun YeoWoon said, But, promise on your arm, not honor. Yes? If you are a little late, I'll take your arm in return. It was the warning which made him tremble. Jo Yusong, who was surprised for a moment, understood that he had to hurry. Understood. We can do that. Jo Yusong barely persuaded Chun YeoWoon and left the building he was in. It was because he had to get away from the jammers to begin his work. Wei Yang, the third team leader of the mobile strike team, went stiff. Chun YeoWoon didn't seem like the kind to back down, but now he said that he would respond to the calls of the Public Security Bureau. It was a bit weird, but it felt like the man was human. If the man didn't cooperate, they would have been shot together. But there was a problem. Something's up. At first, he thought Chun YeoWoon had decided to step back from the push and pull. No matter how strong the Murim warrior was, Wei Yang believed that anyone would become weary when their life was at stake. However, this wasn't the attitude someone who surrendered was supposed to have. Team leader? The team members looked at him, not knowing what to do. Eventually, Wei Yang had to ask. What do you mean you won't give up your weapon? It's what you heard. Chun YeoWoon didn't bother giving a reason. Rather, he threatened to cut down anyone who even touched the tip of his blade. Look here, man. What am I supposed to think when you clearly said that you will respond and cooperate with us but refuse to release your weapon? For a Murim warrior, our weapon is our life. Isn't that common sense? Common sense? Wei Yang was at a loss for words. Those who carry around blades or swords are normally subjected to investigation by the public security, and if they are imprisoned, their weapons will be taken away. I'm going crazy here. And the clothes which can be seen in the old martial arts historical dramas. Ha! It isn't like he's someone from the past who fell into the modern world with some time machine. Shockingly, that was accurate. However, time machines didn't exist in this era. Wei Yang glanced around. Whoa! Civilians who thought the case had been resolved came over and cheered. They were all cheering for the public security. Damn it! And during this time, if they couldn't even retrieve the weapons of the criminal or handcuff him, they would be ridiculed. In other words, people would make fun of the public security. However, they couldn't push their luck with Chun YeoWoon. Damn it! Only if he wasn't a Mori. Just a while back, this Murim warrior dragged away their team leader. That was when he heard someone's voice. Team leader. It was So Pyong. He was the one who helped Lee Myung, the third team leader, to a hospital by car, as he was hit by 2 bullets. However, there seemed to be something in his hand. Ah! Wei Yang recognized it at once. With a smile, So Pyong, who was far away, said, "Let's use this, team leader." It was something that was borrowed from the 5th Special Mobile Strike Team, which had yet to return. Before they met Chun YeoWoon, they were all thinking of returning that object to the 5th team. They never guessed that they would be able to use it. Good. Now. Wei Yang spoke very softly to Chun YeoWoon. Look. There is something called pride. How would it look if we couldn't escort the man who was harming the public security without following our protocols? I said I would cooperate. I don't remember surrendering to you men. Wei Yang's face almost contorted. Ah, it was different. Both words had different meanings. Although his rage was boiling, he knew that it was physically impossible to suppress Chun YeoWoon, so maintaining his calm, he said, "Citizens have eyes. And we are the guards of the Chinese government's law enforcement. Please." I refused. Chun YeoWoon didn't back down. Sigh, fine. Fine. Then we will give up on retrieving your weapon. Instead, we'll handcuff you until you enter the bus. And we'll release you once you get in. I'm asking you to do this in consideration of the honor the public security has. Wei Yang gave up his pride and pleaded with Chun YeoWoon. Please, please. Chun YeoWoon looked into the eager eyes and held out both his hands. Don't try anything. Of course not. Yes. Wei Yang felt happy. Not saying anything else, he called for the second in command. As if waiting, So Pyong put the handcuffs on Chun YeoWoon's wrists. Clap. The handcuffs were different from what the other officers had. They were on the thicker side, box-shaped, and there was a machine installed on them. After putting them on, So Pyong pressed a button. Yes. Clench. The handcuffs tightly sealed around Chun YeoWoon's wrists. In addition, special energy rose from the machine, which was in the middle of the handcuffs. The mechanical device is generating a wave that disperses energy. Chun YeoWoon's eyes narrowed at the words of Nano. The wave emitted from the handcuffs had the effect of dispersing the chi and the internal energy he had accumulated in his time. I was right. Chun YeoWoon shook his head. He predicted that something was going to happen. He just couldn't put his finger on it. Weird. If there was one thing he was curious about, then it was why Nano, which had the future's technology, didn't know about the identity of the handcuffs. With a smirk, Wei Yang spoke. Thanks for putting on the handcuffs. Let's go on the bus and make sure you have a good time. Hoo hoo hoo. Clap. Move. Walk to the bus over there. So Pyong pulled out his gun and pointed it at the back of Chun YeoWoon's head. Their voices changed as if they were talking to just another criminal. Step. Chun YeoWoon silently moved to the place where the bus with iron grills was. With a satisfied face, Wei Yang smiled. This works fine. Fubu, in preparation for the future, I will have to ask my superiors for more things that the 5th team uses. The handcuffs put on Chun YeoWoon were used to arrest Nurim warriors. It was used to dissipate their energy and neutralize them. Wee! Get in! When the door opened, So Pyong ordered him to enter while holding the gun. Chun YeoWoon silently entered the bus. K. Withdraw. Roger. With that, the other strikers boarded the bus one after another. Finally, Wei Yang boarded the bus and closed the door. Wei Yang pressed a button on the center console, which was near the driver's seat. Click. And then, the transparent windows of the bus darkened to avoid anyone from seeing inside. When it was completely cut off, the mobile strikers, including Wei Yang, fixed their guns under their seats. And then pulled out the black rods from their waistbands. SRRR. As Wei Yang swung the rod, Chun YeoWoon saw that the rod's length had increased. It was a stage 3 stick used for striking. So Pyong pulled out a few cords and then said, "The black box has been powered off." Phew. Well done. Tack. Tack. Wei Yang slammed the rod into his palm as he slowly walked towards Chun YeoWoon. With the corners of his mouth raised into a smile, he spoke. "Okay now. Let's try to discipline the stern attitude you showed before. Nurim man? Ha! When did young people who learned martial arts become this cocky? For a guy like you, this... Crack. What?" Wei Yang stopped speaking. Something unbelievable just happened. Crack. Fall. The handcuffs, which were supposed to be firmly closed, fell to the ground. Shaking his head, Chun YeoWoon said, "You believed in that toy?" Wei Yang was so shaken that he couldn't speak. How could this happen? Was the device broken? No, the handcuffs were working fine. It was just that Chun YeoWoon's level was far beyond what the handcuffs could dissipate. Of course, even if that wasn't the case, his strength alone had surpassed human limits, so he could have broken out of the cuffs. Damn it! Whatever the reason, it broke, and this was the worst. Wei Yang, who believed in the efficacy of the cuffs, tried to get his revenge on Chun YeoWoon. That. Didn't I clearly warn you to not play around? Chun YeoWoon stretched out his hand towards the man. Wei Yang, who was 5 steps away, got pulled in. Oh, no! Wei Yang grabbed onto the bus seat of either side to not get dragged, but he was helplessly dragged away. Tack! Chun YeoWoon grabbed both his wrists. Wei Yang, scared, yelled out. Wait up. If you harm public security, you brought this on yourself. Crack! With an eerie sound, Wei Yang's arms broke in a bizarre manner, and the shattered bones popped out. Quack! It was so painful that Wei Yang couldn't stop screaming. Team leader! Stop! Right, Chun YeoWoon had to be stopped, but everyone was so frightened that they couldn't move. They were holding rods in their hands, but they were scared. Ignoring them, Chun YeoWoon spoke to Wei Yang, who was in pain. This is the fun time you've been waiting for. Hey guys, I'm playing with the text in brackets, so let me know what you think. If you have color suggestions too, I wanted to try to differentiate between nano and mind thoughts, but think of colors to differentiate, maybe nano text to always be uppercase? Write in the comments.